I'd just like to make one comment before.
Yep.
Make a motion, we
Please.
open the meeting.
Is there a second? Moved and second, all those in favor? Under new business, we have a joint letter regarding heavy trucks. We discussed that for the, I think, the last 2 meetings. I think there's a draft letter in here that goes to the Congress to discuss this. I don't believe we've given Denny any instructions on what to do with this, whether we want it sent or not, so, gentlemen, Ernie?
I also got an email in relation to this.
Yes,
More detail, you did, so, I would make a motion that we, sign this and send it, because it does deal with our local roads.
Gentlemen, is there a second? Ricky, give me a second, then we'll discuss it.
I'll second it, but I'm not going
It's
to
been
vote
moved
in
and
favor.
seconded. Discussion, please. Rick?
No, I'm going to vote against it. I just think we, as big truck owners, we pay a lot of taxes to drive on the roads, and seem to get, here we are again, and going to take some more away. So, no, I'm not interested.
If I may.
Go ahead.
The one thing I'll comment, it isn't the trucks that are currently operating. It looks like they're trying to expand to double and triple trailers. And that's the big issue that they're concerned about. Because at some point in time, then that gets passed on to local roads. So with heavier loading allowed in the truck. So that's what they're trying to stop, impacting local roads.
Mhm.
That's, I know where you're coming from, so I just wanted to let you know.
Gentlemen?
And I guess initially, when this was brought up, I would have agreed with Rick, but since I researched it, it clearly shows that they're trying to bring some big trucks over our roads. And I just think that, I guess that Ricky can convince me that there's a real need for bigger trucks, double trailers and heavier loads, and I would vote to not do this, but this looks like they're really trying to.
I really don't believe you're going to see them out on country roads with double and triple trailers. Just not going to happen. I mean, I think these guys are kind of blowing a little bit of this out of proportion, but it's fine. I mean, I understand where they're coming from.
Ernie?
What could happen is, and I've heard this for years, is trailers are generally, they went from 48 feet to 53 feet. They want to make them even longer than that now, and increase gross weight from 80,000 to 85,000 or more. That's generally the trend, because the more freight you can put on a truck, the more profitable it is for the company shipping it. And I'm against it. I would probably, having done this for a lot of years myself, I probably would agree to with something like this for the reason they state. Most trucks that, just about, quite a lot of the loads that are on the highway now are at gross or over gross in many ways, depending on the commodity you're hauling, and so I'm in favor of, we don't need this on our town roads especially, and if it's on, doubles and triples are generally regulated just to, and their lengths I don't believe will change, but single trailers will, and I think there's a lack of experienced drivers in just about every company is looking for drivers, and I think to put a greater population of inexperienced drivers behind the wheel of trucks that are larger, heavier, isn't the way to go, and so I'd rather keep it where it is, and I'd be in favor of this.
I think I'd also say there are no east-west easy transits across the strait, the state, and this happens to be one of them, 27 across.
Yeah,
And I'm not so sure that they wouldn't get some pretty heavy rates on these.
there's a lot of truck traffic goes up 27,
Yeah.
you know, goes up to Kingfield now, and
Yeah.
so.
Any more discussion, gentlemen? It's been moved, Michael?
There was a suggested proclamation attached to this. Are we voting just on agreeing with the letter or sending a proclamation? It's not in here, it's not in this package, but it's been in the emails.
Motion is send the letter, sign and send the letter.
Okay. That's what I wanted.
This isn't meant to, I'm not a big fan of groups that tend to, hassle trucks that are currently on the road. This is meant for the future in terms of,
Yeah.
it's not like, there was a group started some time ago that kind of put a lot of pressure on the majority of drivers who are safe drivers. And this isn't that. This is just for future over length,
There
over
are
width.
proposals in Congress, and have been proposals in
Yeah,
Congress.
yeah.
Gentlemen? Seeing that there's no more discussion, all those in favor of sending this letter out with our signatures, raise your right hand. And those opposed, that's 4-1. Bar Harbor, you're here, and you're going to give us a report, our quarterly report. Please.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah.
MRDA?
Yeah, you said it all to us.
Great, great.
But if you start talking for something, you might be
He gets to kill the tree for nothing.
Yeah,
we printed them all.
We do.
see? Did you have? This one has
This
a,
one been updated.
it has, it wasn't done yesterday when I emailed them, but it got done today. That's more newer. Yep.
You did.
Okay. So what I've handed out is first the relationship summary, and this covers the, excuse me, administration on the account. It's just a snapshot of the administration. So basically, gives you the town's balance as of the end of November. The second line, where your investment manager is exempt from income taxes. Under legal considerations, we should have a resolution on file letting us know who's authorized to act.
Okay, can I break in there?
Yes.
We actually had that authorization, we had that request, and I thought we sent that letter out. I have a signed copy of that we sent to you on October, if I'm not mistaken. Where is it? Is this not what you're asking for?
That is exactly what I'm looking for.
We sent that out to you on that date.
Oh, okay. Well, this is great. That's what I need.
Very good.
So perfect. Thank you. And so that takes care of that. Then just running down the page, just kind of summarize what has happened for activity. We've only done distributions from the account once on February 7th. And the total distributions were $51,314, went to Andrew Scoggin. I summarized the income year-to-date, $22,108. And I need to guessing, Dennis, that the statements should be directed to you?
Melanie or me?
And
One of the two.
any preference?
Direct them to me, I'll make sure Melanie gets them.
Okay, okay, all right. So that I will update. Then I just put a little history on there. So I have the resolution, I have the statement information. What we have done is we've done distributions as requested that one time. We can proceed with that unless the town decided they wanted a regularly scheduled distribution. If that's the case, you just let me know. And when we spoke here, I think it was early summer last spring, we decided that it would be appropriate, that the town decided to have us reinvest 10% of the income. So I think a good time to do that would be right after the end of the year. We can have all of the figures for what was earned during 2017, and then just do a move from income to principal in the account. But I just wanted to make sure that that was okay. All right?
Communication preferences, who needs to update that? I mean, obviously, you know Carrie's not here anymore.
Oh, yes,
I
yes.
think
and
she
that's-
just did, but she put Kenny down.
Yes.
Yeah, we
Okay,
just did.
that's,
She did that, yes.
okay, good.
Yep, so we'll take care of that. And the other thing I handed around was just for information.
Just a second, we have a question. Howard, go ahead.
Can you give me an idea of when in January, how quickly in January we can expect a 2017 final figures report?
Yeah, and do you mean like this spreadsheet kind of report or a statement type of report?
All we really need for some of the trusts is a statement of earnings minus the 10%, or with the 10%, if you just tell us which way you're giving it to us.
How soon? So we get scrubbed numbers, usually by the 5th of the month. So, you know, by the 5th of the month, I'll have this sort of a report ready. If that's
This sort of a report is,
the spreadsheet that I give
Is
you.
that one you passed out?
I did, but I was kind of running around, so you might not have
I don't think
received it.
Thank you.
This is the sub-accounting that we do for the town. Excuse me. So
okay, so interest,
this report details all the sub-accounts. Usually, like today, I didn't have it yesterday, but I did have it ready by today. So depending on, you know, when the 5th falls, pretty much assured we can have it by the 5th or 6th of January.
great,
Okay.
yeah, if we could do that,
Okay.
rather than waiting for a month-end
Right,
statement,
right.
we just need that.
Kenny?
And that will give you enough time to give us the numbers for the Stevens, as I understand it?
That's what, you know, I'm, based on the numbers they've got here tonight, we can let them know about where we're looking,
Okay,
so
good.
they can start putting their stuff together, but then tell them that by the, say, the 8th or 10th of January, we'll be able to have a hard number for them, so that they can prepare that to have it ready to go into the report,
Yeah, we need to,
because we need to get that into the annual report.
So it's,
Are these numbers on this spreadsheet you just passed out,
yes.
are they for the month of November, or are they cumulative through November?
They're for the month of November.
Just for the
Yeah.
month,
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a year to date.
But year-to-date was would be what we needed to have.
Correct, and we would, so you're saying you would want the interest and the dividends, basically the total income amount for the full
For the
year?
full year?
Correct.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely, and we could be able to, or we would be able to provide that likely within 5 business days after the year closes.
Let's see.
So by the 5th, you could provide
So the
that.
5th or 6th of January.
closes on December 31st. So
Correct. So it might go into the beginning of the second week of January, because the 1st is a holiday. But as soon as we can get it, absolutely. It typically though at the end of the year, sometimes you have a delay in the dividends because of that holiday. So it can take a couple of days for it to hit the account. So there is a little bit of lag there.
Right, yeah, and the numbers are audited too, to make sure they're clean, just because sometimes there are problems in dividends posting and that sort of thing, so.
Okay, you can go on with the report if you would, please.
Yeah. That's all that I have for information, so I'll hand it over to John.
Sure. So I'll talk about the other handout that we had, this one right here. What I thought I'd do today is give a brief economic update, then get into the portfolio, and we can review the income and anything else that you wanted to go over. And please feel free to ask questions as we go along in the report. We feel the equity markets right now, the international markets are continuing to perform well. They've been performing better than the U.S. markets for about the past year, and we think that's going to continue probably for a couple of years, especially over in Western Europe. France is doing much better, Spain is doing much better, Germany is starting to look better. Growth is coming back to Western Europe. So a lot of those big multinational companies over there have started doing better, which is good to see, and we have put more of a weight in the portfolio into international equities, and it has benefited the portfolio since we've had it. The U.S. stock market still looks like it's going to continue to run and perform well. It looks like probably for at least another 12 to 18 months. And I never like to talk about politics, but the tax reform that's going through, I'm going to speak on it just from an economic perspective. If the tax reform does go through, that does look good for business. It actually looks a lot better for U.S. companies that do a lot of their business within the United States borders. So the larger companies, the multinational companies in the U.S., a lot of their business is done outside, and that business done outside is taxed at a lot lower rate. But companies that do all their business in the U.S., they're stuck paying the higher rate. And this tax cut will really benefit the companies that do their business primarily 100% in the United States. Typically that's smaller companies, so that could really benefit them. A lot of them are paying a 30, 35, and even higher percent tax in the U.S., and the multinationals can kind of get away with lower rates. You see some of the tech companies paying 10, 15%. So it's a big difference. And then that can go towards hiring and capital spending, which really promotes the jobs within the U.S. and really gets the economy growing. So we think that can be a positive for business. On the fixed income side, we think interest rates will continue to steadily increase. The Fed will likely raise rates in December. Not guaranteed, but it looks like they will raise it one more time. We have positioned the bond portfolio in shorter maturity bonds to kind of offset a rising interest rate. A rising interest rate for bonds is a very difficult bond environment, but we can offset that with shorter maturity bonds. So that's what I had for the economic update. If we turn to page 2, to the 3 pie charts, you'll see the overall asset allocation of the portfolio on the left-hand side. About 58% in stocks, 38% in bonds, and 4% in cash as of November 30th. And then if we move to our right, the equity diversification, that's how the 58% of stocks are broken out. So we have about 60% in large cap stocks, 25% in international stocks. We've been building that allocation out, and that has really benefited the portfolio. About a year ago, that was probably at 10 to maybe 12%. And those international companies have done well for the portfolio year to date. Then we have a small slice in diversified emerging markets in the purple there. And then if we go to the far right with the fixed income diversification, well diversified, The majority of the portfolio is in individual corporate bonds there, 56%. We feel individual corporate bonds offer us the ability to customize the portfolio and really add a lot of benefits to the portfolio, we feel, long-term. The preferred security is at 8%. We like to add a slice of the preferred securities because they do offer a higher yield. Typically, these preferreds that we're selecting are yielding anywhere between 5 and 6%. So it is a nice yield in this type of environment. We also have the TIPS, the Treasury Inflation Protected Securities. That's an inflation hedge for the portfolio. Basically, the income increases and the bond price increases as inflation increases, measured by CPI. So it's a nice inflation hedge to have in the portfolio. If we turn the page, we'll get to the equity analysis. Just to touch on a few key points with our stock strategy. It is an active strategy, so we are making a deliberate decision on the individual stocks that we are purchasing in the portfolio. All stocks must pay a dividend, and we like to see the companies that we purchase pay an increasing dividend. So as we hold the stock, we want to see the company pay out more money to the portfolio. You'll see the top holdings there on the right-hand side in the portfolio. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see how your portfolio, which is in the blue, is built compared to the S&P 500, which is a major index in the stock market. And it's broken out by the 11 different industries there on the left-hand side. So you can see right now, we are actively managing the portfolio, and we are overweight and underweight different sectors.
John?
Yes.
Just point out, our copies are black and white only, so
Oh,
you need to
Oh,
reference
sorry.
a color.
sorry.
Maybe we should
we-
have had that.
We do have extras if you,
No, it's a minor thing, as long as you're a little more descriptive of what we're looking for.
sure. The other thing I just want to focus on as well too is that we place a high focus on risk management. It's very important to us, and especially in this type of market environment. The stock market has been going up a lot. It does feel like we're kind of at the late stages of a stock market. The performance has been very strong. And so with each individual stock in the portfolio, we have an exit strategy. So basically we call it a trailing stop loss. And if any individual stock falls by 25% from its most recent high point, we do an official review, and then we typically sell to either minimize the losses or lock in any gains in the portfolio. This strategy was very beneficial in 07 and 08. We didn't avoid all losses, but we did have, the losses were significantly less than what was experienced in the market. So that's just another thing to keep in mind.
So, just as a question, you said we were at the late stage of the stock market run?
You said it feels.
It feels, exactly. You never know for sure where we are, but I mean, this market has gone on for about, we've been in a strong positive market environment for about 10 years now. Typically, a stock market on average, looking at it historically, they last about 6 to 7 years. So this one is going a little longer than the average.
And how is the tax cut going to benefit that?
I think it allows for a revaluation of the stock market. So now companies, especially domestic companies that do their business within the U.S., now have more money. Instead of paying it to the government, now they have additional money that either they pay it out as a dividend, or they buy a new machine, or they hire people. So we expect that to stimulate the economy. If we turn to page 4, we'll get into the fixed income analysis. On the left-hand side, you'll see the fixed income maturity weighting. Basically, if you added up all those bars right there, that's the total value of your fixed income portfolio. And what we've done is we've broken out the portfolio based on maturity ranges. And you can see the different ranges there on the left-hand side, starting at the top with short maturity bonds of 0 to 1 year at $65,000. and then we go to 1 to 3 year and 3 to 5 and so on and so forth. This is just to depict that we're buying shorter maturity bonds to help reduce the risk during a rising interest rate environment. A rising interest rate environment is typically negative for bonds, but we still want to own bonds because they have other positive attributes for the portfolio. Another reason we're shorter is if you look on the right-hand side where it says Treasury and corporate yields, and if you look at the Treasuries column, and you'll see the 1-year Treasury has an interest rate of 1.61%. And then if you go down a little bit to the 10-year, the yield is 2.41%. The difference between those two is about 0.8%. So you have to buy a bond that matures 9 years later just to get 0.8%. We call that a flat yield curve, and you're not getting a lot of value for buying longer maturity bonds. That's another reason why we like the shorter maturity bonds right now. If we turn the page, we'll get into this is the investment performance for the town. We've broken out the investment performance into 3 different sections. So at the top, we have the total portfolio. That includes the performance of the stocks, the bonds, the cash. It's the whole portfolio. And the performance of the town is in bold, and then the benchmark is below it for a reference point. And then we've also broken out the stocks, how the stocks have done in the portfolio, and also how the bonds and the fixed income have done as well. I just want to touch on the total portfolio performance of 12 versus 13.5 and just talk a little bit about the difference with that. As you recall, when the funds were transferred to us, it was transferred in cash, and we talked about building out the portfolio and being selective, especially on the fixed income side, with purchasing the appropriate bonds in the portfolio. And it took us a couple months or so to find all the right investments and the appropriate investments for the portfolio. So there was a larger cash portion in the portfolio for the first couple of months or so. And that's really the difference in the portfolio. Now the portfolio is fully invested. And if you look at a time period from when it was fully invested to now, the performance is in line with the benchmark. If we turn the page, this was sent, it's at the top it's going to say portfolio appraisal. And it's going to have, it'll say the town of Belgrade, and it'll have the names of the individual stocks on the left-hand side. There were 2 reports that I sent that looked very similar, and one was right after the other, but the portfolio appraisal, and it'll have the yield on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
So this is a detailed holding list of all the positions in the portfolio. And we start with the stocks on page 1, and you can see all the different names. I won't go through this in detail, but if you have any questions on any of the individual names, please feel free to ask. If we turn to page 2.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Sure.
If you go through this portfolio analysis appraisal to the very last page, page 4.
Page 4.
It shows a total portfolio, annual income $31,000, current yield 2.5%.
Correct.
How do you reconcile the 2.5 with the yield to date of 12.05 on page 5?
Page 5
Yeah.
of the performance. That's a good question. So the performance that we showed on page 5 is made up of 2 components. The first component is the income that the portfolio is producing, and then the second component is the growth or the price appreciation of the portfolio. So those 2 added together get you that 12%.
Understood.
If we go to page 3, you'll see in the middle there where it says convertible preferred with Bank of America, Equity Commonwealth, and Wells Fargo. I just want to touch on the income. If you look on the right-hand side of that, you'll see the current yield. They're yielding about 5.5%, 6%. So we are getting a nice yield from those preferreds, and we do like to have them in the portfolio. If we turn to page 4, the page that we were just on previously, you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner the income. That is the forecasted income going forward for the next 12 months. So at the end of this year, whatever that number was, that would be the estimated income going forward. So it typically is relatively close to that number.
So the 31,000.
31,238
3868 is a projected number.
going for next year.
Right, for 12 months.
Correct, exactly. If we turn the page, I also have another piece that says unrealized gains and losses at the top. It's going to show you, it's pretty much almost exactly what we just reviewed. But at our last meeting, there was an individual that wanted to see the purchase dates of the different securities in the portfolio. So this report on the left-hand side, you can see when we purchased different securities in the portfolio. So I just wanted to include that.
That was me, thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. But if there aren't any other questions with that, we can turn through those 5 pages. And the other page I want to focus on, it's at the top, it says Portfolio Activity Summary. It's a 1-page report like this. Should be the last page in the handout I provided. And I like this page because it gives you a quick snapshot of what happened in the portfolio year to date. So at the top, you can see a starting portfolio value, and then you can see the contributions or the initial deposit that came into the account. You'll see the withdrawals there. One thing I wanted to comment on with the withdrawals at 66,700 roughly is that part of that withdrawal is a bond that got reissued by a corporation. And it's just the way our accounting system accounts for it, is that it counts it as a withdrawal and then logs it back in as a contribution. So unfortunately, there's nothing we can do to change that accounting aspect of it. But I just wanted to point out the difference you're seeing between what Ruth said, where the distributions year to date, and this number, which is a little higher, and it's because of that bond. Then you'll see the realized and unrealized gains and losses. If you add those two together, which is about 110,000, that's the growth of the portfolio over the past 11 months, or the price appreciation in the portfolio. And then you'll see the interest and dividends year to date through November 30th at around 22,000. And then if you add those two together, you get about 131,500, and that's the total performance of the portfolio, both the growth and the income in the portfolio year to date. And then we get into the accrued interest change, portfolio fees, and then the ending market value of $1,237,155 as of November 30th. So that's what I had for tonight. Were there any questions that I could answer?
Gentlemen?
Yeah, if you look at the acquisition dates.
Sure.
They all seem to be this year.
Correct.
Yeah.
The funds came in at the beginning of this year.
That's about right.
Okay,
That's how I did it.
that's when you were all of the securities sold, and then you bought them all again? How did that work?
The securities were sold at the prior bank, and then cash was transferred over, and then we reinvested the cash that was transferred over from the prior bank.
So you've got all cash, no securities.
Correct, exactly.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate you coming in and reporting to us.
Absolutely, yeah, you're
It was
welcome.
a very complete report. I thought it was great.
Great, thank you.
The sooner you can get the annual,
Absolutely.
We'll email it right to you.
you'll email it.
You're up.
Thank you.
I am. What do you got, youngster?
Request for additional ballot, not new, it is used.
Thank you very much.
Good night, thank you.
Thank you.
The cost of the ballot is $7,500, delivered, installed, from, looking at purchasing it from the company that's currently maintaining our ballers. We wanted to purchase it out of this year's budget. We do have enough in this year's budget to purchase it. That's why we waited so long till the end of the year to request it. We're unable to keep up with, you're there all the time, see the plastic piled up. I've got trailer full of plastic that's down back that we haven't, I've been there for 3 years. I've never seen halfway through that trailer. We can never, ever get it emptied. We currently have 3 balers. One is dedicated to cardboard, the other one is dedicated to mixed paper. So the third baler has to handle everything else that we do. And we're constantly tripping over everything, trying to get it all in, jockeying things around, trying to get it done. It's just, takes us a lot of extra time, and it becomes a safety issue, not only for us, but for residents. Walking around outside, we've got plastic that built up over there for quite a while now. So we wanted to purchase another ballot.
So you're gonna have 4.
So we would have 4, yes, which would also help us come spring. I mean, you asked the question about the boat wrap. That stuff's been going to the landfill. We don't have the room to store it, and we never had the capacity to actually bale it. That would have to be baled almost immediately. It was for the month and a half or 2 months that's extremely active in town. We could, if we did have another baler, we could dedicate it to that for that period of time in the spring to make it all go away. It's lost revenue that we've never seen before, and it's a cost to us putting it in the landfill. So it's just another good thing about having another baler. I'm only asking for 1 this year. Next year might be another.
I guess I got a question. What's the difference from the price of a used one to a new one?
You know, I didn't look into new ones because they are around 30, 40 grand to buy a new one. And the used ones that are coming from Valley, they're the people that do all of our maintenance. They rebuild them and they warranty them, and they do they've done all the work on them their whole lives for the most part.
Good savings.
I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to make the comment that I've been up there, walked around, asked why we were having the clutter in the work area, which to me is problematic, and the stuff around site. I said, what would it take just to keep a person operating there, and what was your answer? To take that backlog down?
Oh, we'd definitely have to hire Aaron on as a full-time employee. I need another, just with the one baler that we have, yeah. We would have
With 3.
I'm sorry, yeah, with the 3, we'd have to be there continuously.
I had him brief me on this, and I was asking similar questions.
Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Has there been an economic analysis done to put numbers on the things that have been said here to justify it? Looking at the next best alternative, because I wonder why where the balers that we have aren't operating for a good part of the full hours available during the week, why you can't bring a crew or a skeleton crew in to use existing balers when the transfer station isn't open to the public to catch up on some of these things.
Jack, I asked that question in,
Well, we still only have the one baler available to do, number 2 naturals, number 2 colors, number 1s.
No, I mean without a new baler.
We would still just have the one baler,
Yeah.
because the cardboard baler, we use that almost 5 days a week baling cardboard,
Yeah, okay,
currently.
okay.
The paper baler, when the baler is full, we can eject
You
it.
mentioned plastic that's piled up that you can't get at,
Correct.
and this would be a partial solution.
It would, yes, it would be a solution to get to all that
So
plastic.
why can't you bring a crew in to clean up the plastic out of the trailer
Where do we-
when it's not open?
Where do we put it? We're already baling when we're not open. We're baling cardboard and we're baling paper, we're baling number 2s, or magazines, or, well, newspaper, we're always baling. We're baling on Tuesdays and Thursdays when we're not open.
Okay.
So the question was, that like Dennis brought up, is we'd have to hire somebody, have somebody there full-time.
Okay,
An additional full-time person just baling.
okay, my other question was, is the amount that's being requested the full amount? Is it the purchase price of the baler, or is it the installed cost?
It's delivered and installed.
Delivered and installed, thank you.
Delivered and installed.
Mr. Barrett?
Kenny, if you start, if you're able to start doing the boat shrink wrap, where you have, it's anywhere to store, you have to keep it clean.
Well, that's where we would have to dedicate the baler at that point. If we're gonna start taking that and baling it, it would have to go directly into a baler. So as it's coming in, we would have to dedicate a baler. Right now, there's no way we can
But
dedicate a baler.
Even baled has to be protected, isn't that
Oh,
correct?
yeah, yes, yeah, once it's baled, it would go into a trailer. Baled, all the wrap in town, maybe 2 or 3 bales, but it would be a full trailer unbaled.
Yeah, but you're not gonna come in and ask for something else to accommodate that necessarily.
No.
Denny?
well, on the boat wrap, is there a possibility that we basically say you can bring it in at these times so that you can basically make best use of that, so we're not storing it?
Yes,
We have to put it in the vault?
that's what part of the meeting with the boat yards here was that day, is that if we could keep it to a, like we do with Hammond, on a Thursday, they deliver their
Then you're just
cardboard,
focusing on
on a
that.
Tuesday, they deliver that, and that's what we focus on those days.
Gentlemen? Rick?
I'm still a little bit lost here. If you can't do it with 3 balers, why do you think you can do it with 4? Are you gonna have to hire somebody
Well,
else?
it's actually, what that gives us, no, we wouldn't have to hire anybody else, that's the point. It actually, that extra baler, all the plastic that's sitting outside, we could be baling that right now, but we can't touch that because we're baling all the stuff that's coming in the window. So we're not, or we have to constantly jockey things around to make room for more stuff to come in. We're limited on space. If we have 10 boxes, say that the 10 boxes, 5 of them are for newspapers, 5 of them are for magazines. Well, we're starting to run out of boxes. And we have the Boy Scouts coming in on Saturday next week. We have to quickly take whatever we have in that middle baler, get it out of there quick, whatever it is, a half a bale, a quarter bale, whatever it is, throw our magazines in so that we can open up boxes to collect more newspaper. So we're constantly moving things around, and we can never, ever, because we only have one baler to bale
They got
5,
2
6
dedicated
categories.
balers, right? They can only work this, so it just.
I got that, but, I mean, I'm kind of thinking,
I was asking similar questions.
well, it just, sometimes it doesn't make sense. Why would you buy another vehicle if you haven't got a driver for it?
Well, the thing is, they have a driver for it, it's just that they can't use it.
Well, you've got
so-
one that you're not, you've got one there that you could be using. That's,
Except for it's being used for other stuff during the work days when they're here.
okay, so you do that plastic on the other days that,
That's what we are doing. We are doing that, Rick. Come down someday, we'll take a look at everything down there, I'll explain it all to you.
Yeah.
We have a whole storage area that's full. We have to, as milk jugs come in, they're large, they take up a lot of air in a bag. That stuff comes in, we have to crush it in the bags, take it out of the balers, bring it upstairs and store it until we have enough of that to make a bale. So we're handling stuff five times. If we can just throw it directly into a baler and crush it and leave it there.
I guess so. Let's see if this works. I just don't want to hear in 6 months, we need another employee to
No,
run
that's
this.
exactly was my question, Ricky, and I went through this stuff with him.
Absolutely not. That would actually take a little bit of weight off of the one guy that's really doing 98% of the baling.
Your motion?
I make a motion when you, okay,
I'll second it. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
I'll vote for it.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Ken. Animal Control Officer Contract Renewal.
Yes. As you know, we need, by law, we are required to have an animal control officer. And I talked to Kathy Ross, who's our current animal control officer, and she said that, I'm trying to remember now all of the things that she said, but she hasn't received, I know because I worked out the contract with her back in 2007, I believe it was, and she hasn't received an hourly increase since that time. So so she's looking for an hourly increase to, what was the number, $12.50. We looked at any number of towns around us, and they were paying that or more. Do you have those numbers, or is it in the budget book?
They're in the budget books.
Okay. And so when she came in and she asked for that, I said, well, we'll have to ask the board. We do need the animal control officer. So I leave it up to you to decide whether or not you want to continue with the stipend. It's $4,000, I think that's the stipend, right? And then, yeah, and then the increase would be from $10 to $12.50 or $12.50 now. And then I think the actual increase is only in terms of the hours she works. How much money did that work out to be? About 500 an hour? It wasn't that
It
much.
wasn't much.
Because she works off the stipend primarily.
Ernie?
Well, so basically, all we're looking at here is the wages, when she has to work additional
It's the
hours.
12.50, yes.
And it'd be correct.
Now, this is different from the budget, but you'll see that. We've added $1,000 into the budget for emergency care for animals because she had a horse and a pig, and we had to get emergency veterinary treatment last year for her. And how much is that? Close to $1,000. So we put that in just as a, so that it doesn't come out.
And I take it this contract is working fine.
I'm not having any problem. If you have heard any problems about the animal control officer, then you should pass them on to me, but I haven't heard. I think I did have one complaint. I checked into it, and she actually had gone and tried to find this animal, but she couldn't find it, and someone found it later on.
Gentlemen?
You gotta correct the treasurer's address.
Did you do that? I didn't do it.
We have a motion to accept the
I'll
contract?
make it.
And a second?
second.
Moving second. Any more discussion, gentlemen? All those in favor? That's done. Now, the next one is,
This is one that,
well, hold on now, let me, the letter actually came to the Dear the Honorable Barrett. I'm not sure why that is.
oh, he's dear, he's not.
Dear the Honorable Barrett.
You're feeling sorry for me.
Go ahead, Danny.
Well, this is a request for the town to join, as it's put here, city and county leaders across the country are officially recognizing January 21st through the 27th of 2018, January 21st through the 27th, as School Choice Week in town Hungary. And it requests the issuance of a proclamation declaring that, and we would, if we were to pass this, we wouldn't say now therefore I bear it.
The Honorable Barrett.
Well, it doesn't say that.
It's now therefore I.
But therein lies the crux of the thing. They would like to have recognition of all kinds of opportunities in education, including, and that would be in Belgrade, across the country, including school choice. And it says our goal is simply to raise awareness among parents of the public and non-public K through 12 educational options available for their children.
Yes,
Who's it from?
It's from an organization, Andrew Campanello, president of the National School Choice Week.
Andrew who, I'm sorry.
Campanella, C-A-M-P-A-N-E-L-L-A.
Is there an address?
There's a website, www.schoolchoiceweek.com.
The mailing address is on the last page.
And yes, I was just going to look at the last page. It's Noelle Delaney, Noelle being N-O-E-L-L-E, Delaney, D-E-L-A-N-E-Y, National School Choice Week. P.O. I can give you this.
Just city, state?
P.O. Box 1540, Dixon, California.
Okay, excellent.
And I can give you the full material if you want.
so the question is do we want to enjoy or endorse school choice week? Yes,
I'm just curious, did anybody look into a website or what that means, school choice weeks, besides what was presented in the letter?
No, that's, I do not.
Does it have to be? Okay.
yes, Mr. Rice.
I see no reason why we shouldn't. This is just really, there's nothing that is binding to the town. We just read the school choice opinions in Maine. I just think it's just supportive of people to be more aware that there are options out there. Very good options if you want homeschool or if you want to go to charter school. It's just something, I think as a town government, we should support that process.
Yes,
What do you, did you read anything? Did you do any research before you supported this?
I didn't do any research other than the fact that I know what they're directing you towards school choice, and I'm very in favor of school choice, so.
But
And
you
I
didn't
think
do,
it's-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I guess I'm not sure what the concern should be. There's 30 governors and X number of states that have supported this.
So you have done some research then,
Well, it's all here.
okay, but that's
And
all you did
there's
with what they
nothing
gave you?
here, there's nothing here that is binding to the town of Belgrade. This just basically is saying we support your thought and think this is a good thing that people should look into. That's how I do it. I just see that. I think it's I think it's a very good idea myself. We already have some charter schools. We know that there are people in Belgrade, for example, that do homeschooling. And the other thing I picked up in here, it looks like, is online schools and trainings that you get for nothing. It's just, I think it's very educational to people to be aware of that there are options out there, and it doesn't cost the town anything if they choose those options. So this isn't saying that, oh, since you want to go to this school, we're going to pay for it.
Oh, no.
So it has nothing to do with.
I'm curious, I mean, did you reach out to Snow Pond and see if they endorse it, or did you reach out to RSVP and see if
No, I
they
did not.
endorse it, or Reedfield or Manchester, or, I'm just curious if there was any further research beyond the paper. I mean, I have no problem with school choice either. I just am curious about, for a proclamation to be made.
There's no problem with conflicting state laws or anything like that.
Nothing I can see.
I'd like to make a motion, we table this until we find out more, a little more.
What I can do.
I second that.
Yeah, I'm not, it's the first I've seen of it, I'd like to look at it up a little bit and see. You know, in general, I'm in favor of choice too, but yet, in general, I'm not in favor of for-profit schools that try to take money out of the public coffers to, you know, and so that's what I don't,
Yeah.
that's what I wanna research a little bit.
And I'll do some more research if you want. I thought it was pretty innocuous, but I'll hear what you say.
Yeah, I mean, similar to the road thing, you know, let's just look at it again and find out.
And it's been moved and seconded that we table this until a little more research is done. Any more discussion, gentlemen? Seeing no more discussion, all those in favor? And it looks like 5-0. Now we're going into MRDA, inventory of sites for redevelopment. Denny?
Well, this letter came in, and what they're requesting is a listing from Belgrade of non-productive sites, industrial sites, or sites that can be used for development or redevelopment. I looked at that, I don't know it, and I thought I'd put it on the agenda to see if anyone here, if you read through it, they're required to do an inventory of non-productive industrial and manufacturing sites. The only sites that I'm aware of are currently active. There's no, the only place I could think of that went out of business and is inactive, at least formally active, is the old D&D restaurant up in North Belgrade. Unless you guys can tell me it's something else, I don't know.
What about the Hammond's property across where they were going to the grocery store?
Yeah.
You know,
They
the old,
cabinets and stuff.
Main envelope.
Well, see, I forgot. I don't know if Hammond would ever put that in active use. They own it, but yeah.
Oh, they try to get
Yeah,
stored,
yeah, okay.
not paid.
So that's the old envelope group, okay. They just want me to make a list of them and send it into a pursuant to the law, which they're attached.
that was that one up on 27 and 135.
Yeah, that's one of the,
Okay,
it needs redevelopment.
Okay.
They need some development.
town law, the old town office, that's a good point, I have even.
Anybody else got any more sites? Jack?
Question, do you talk to the site owners before you put their piece of property on the list?
It says develop an inventory of non-productive industrial. I certainly can, because that one's handled, and that's not a big, just don't see him, but,
Yeah, if he's interested in doing anything in the future with that, this would be free advertising.
Of course, they may be using it for something now themselves internally.
And we want the town office put in there?
That was discussed.
Sounds like a plan.
okay.
Anything else, gentlemen? Yes.
I'm just curious, Denny, how do you go about that, researching the sites? Just by querying conversations, or do you actually go through the database? I'm just curious.
Well, we have a database of industrial sites, I mean, not database, but taxpayers.
Okay.
And we look through that today, of course, they're all active, right? So I'm trying to identify the ones that are inactive that fit the bill, right? So they're, actually, here's the issue. The state, in the economic development part, is looking for us to do their research on inactive sites.
So that's why I was wondering how you
Yeah,
do that.
yeah,
because
yeah.
So what about Tukey's? It's for sale, but
It's for sale, but it's still active.
it's still active,
And I can't say that it won't be
okay. Right.
sold.
Right, no, that's why I was just curious then.
So I went through all of that. I mean, I did try to figure it out.
Okay, let's go on, please. Next item on the agenda is town fees, and it's policy.
These are,
We're reviewing the policies, 3 policies. Well, the first one is town fees. It's in your book, Benny.
right. As you see, the highlighted area there, it says complete tax roll with addresses, map, lot, hard copy, and disc at $75. There is an option now where we can email that in an Excel spreadsheet, should someone want it in that form. And my understanding is that's $50.
Now, these are the fees people would pay to get these services.
These are the fees that these people would pay.
Yes, and I think we do this annually.
Well,
No, we haven't done it annually.
We haven't done, I'm reviewing, remember, we're doing all of the policies
Yeah.
this year. Then we'll review them.
I haven't seen this in years, so.
Has it?
So anyhow, so that's that.
So
Then
the
we,
changes are the ones,
that are highlighted. So
Okay.
then there's a research fee, and this is basically a research fee if someone comes in and does a FOIA request. So So we're moving that up to $15 an hour, and that's what I understand other towns are charging.
Well, that's what the state permits.
And then there's a copy fee. We have been charging for years and years and years, 25 cents a copy. Most towns are up at $1 a copy, so we're recommending that fee is up at $1 a copy. The same as it is for faxes. Let's see, there's one other.
There is vital records.
Well, vital records, you approved that already as a dollar fee for anyone that wants to purchase a folder. So those are the recommended changes in that policy that we're making.
Questions, comments, gentlemen?
On the whole thing, or just that section?
That's the, yeah, well, no, it would be on the whole policy. Those are the things that we're recommending for
Well, I
change.
want the dog licenses. It's, I think, third page.
What page is it?
It's on the third page, and I'm numbered with the third dog licenses down toward the bottom. It says, as of 2 of February 1st, late fees are to be charged to any dog. I think that should be. I don't
Dog
think-
owner.
Dog owner or something.
For the
Well,
dog.
it'd be nice to get the dog to pay.
Yeah, well, I just think that somebody might pick up on that, say, send the bill to the dog. That's what you said.
Dog owner. Owner's dog.
Any more
Real
comments?
No, I just happened to see that. Don't know why I did, but.
Can I get a motion to accept that?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second that.
Second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? 5-0. Policy for handling donation request concerning milfoil removal.
This is a policy that came into effect, I don't know, but it was sometime after I left. And I believe it has to do with individual organizations requesting money for milfoil projects or similar. Whether or not it's still needed or not is a question, but this is a policy that you folks are currently have.
Well, I guess the thing in reading through this that I think is important is that it's required, any request is required to be in here by November 1st.
Yeah.
And I like that idea. I think that was something that we didn't enforce this year.
Well, we put it in November 30th because we didn't, there wasn't enough time to allow.
So I think that November 1st is a really good thing, as far as I'm
And that would be for all petitions.
Yes.
There's a
Any more
couple,
comments, gentlemen?
there's a couple typos.
There is. Deadline is one word.
Oh,
Procedure,
yeah, I saw the spelling of it. We have to move this into a format that you guys have approved,
yeah.
so we'll do that. The one comment on November 1st date, if I can make it, most people collect signatures on election day. And you might want to consider something later after election day.
It's fine with me.
It's up to you. I mean, I'm just
I'm
raising.
opposed to that myself. If they want it, then they work for it.
So that's-
That's my view.
Yeah.
It's just like the taxpayers already pay enough dollars. And I'm gonna show you how
Yeah.
everybody's tax bill later on, because it's everybody's tax bill.
So that's the only issue that I bring up about petitions.
Any more comments? Take a motion to accept.
Okay.
Moved and second.
And that's within the November 1st date.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Mr. Barrett, are you voting for?
This is the one on milfoil?
Yes,
Yeah.
we didn't change anything, stayed the same.
Okay, the last policy is closing the transfer station.
Yeah.
I didn't see any need to modify this unless you guys do.
I read through it, I didn't see anything that looked, I didn't pick up on the spelling or anything, but it's pretty much what the policy's been.
I think it's changed since I've been on the board.
Really haven't had any problems either, so leave it alone.
You think it should say something like emergency closing? So I first read this, I said, why would we close the transfer station? Then I realized I went through it.
You want emergency closing?
Well, I don't know if it's necessary or not. I think it is.
Well, it's when we have a snowstorm and it gets to the point where we gotta close
Yeah.
because we want
People,
people to get home.
I mean, that's the circumstance you're talking
Or
about.
when somebody drives into the
Yeah.
Hopper.
the hopper.
I don't think it would hurt to put in word emergency.
Okay. If it's up to
So
you.
you're gonna amend that to emergency,
Unplanned, unplanned closures as opposed to.
Unplanned, yeah.
however you word it. And we'll look at that again in another meeting,
Yeah, you bring that back.
okay? And now, we want to table that,
I'll make the motion.
and second, is there a second? I'll second. All those in favor, thank you. Security cameras.
This is an issue that I've raised before. I'm looking, we're hoping it works out that I'll be able to, or we'll be able to purchase cameras prior to the end of the year, if there's sufficient funds available in our account. I'm just raising it to your attention. If you would prefer that not to go in that direction, that's fine, but, that's what I'm proposing right now. Now, I had looked at providing a Nest-type camera or off-the-shelf kind of thing that you can buy, but it just doesn't work out, and we're seeing that with the previous purchases that we made. So I'd like to go with a kind of professional approach to this whole thing. So the cost estimated for the building here with expansion capability is $26,933. And if it doesn't, if we aren't able to do that, then we'll move forward in the budget for next year.
I'll make the motion. If you have the money, do it.
And I'll second it. Any discussion? Yes.
So Seacoast Security does our security now.
Yeah.
Now, the quote on this sheet here says it expires in September.
I'm sure that
It's-
I've talked to them
it's-
today, and in fact, I'm meeting with
So good.
one of the guys down there, so.
Is it worth our time to get another quote from another?
I'll get it
company?
tomorrow,
All right, or from
yeah, but I don't
another,
think it's gonna change.
I mean, from another company is what I'm saying.
I did, well,
I'm speaking from my own experience.
yeah, well, we have Seacoast, the reason, I did look at, trying to get, other companies involved in this. Right? But, we have Seacoast Security,
Mhm.
For all of our other
Sure.
issues. And that's the reason why. And I looked, talked to MTG, they were looking at Nest cameras, MTG's main technology group.
Sure.
So, I can't say I've gotten
Mhm.
second quote, but I thought this was.
Was your experience with two companies worthwhile?
Yeah, so far, I mean,
Who do you have?
well, down at the church, we're looking to expand our fire system. So I had Seacoast Security give us a quote, and then I had Cunningham Security give us a quote, and Cunningham Security was thousands of
I'm
dollars
talking about
less.
interoperability between the camera system and the security system.
Yeah, I mean, that's just in one, that was a fire system, didn't have anything to do with cameras, but I was amazed at the difference in cost between these two companies. And so I wonder if, I mean, that's, that's not a terrible price, but yet, and I'm fine with it in general, but I didn't
Well, let
know,
me look into it, it's not a big, I can call for another.
at the very least,
I've never heard of it.
at the very
We-
least,
we
it
did look
holds
at it.
this company's feet to the fire a little
Okay,
bit.
gentlemen, we have a motion on the floor, it's been seconded. We have discussion. You want to withdraw the motion and let Denny look into it?
We're up to,
You're getting close to the deadline here. If they've got money,
Kind
they're
of
gonna have.
seems to me that.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the price, I just didn't know if it was
All right,
worth it.
then we'll vote on the motion as stated.
Sure.
All those in favor?
if I get something better, I'll change.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That's fair enough.
And we may not be able to do it.
Ernie has a handout that he's given each of you on Belgrade tax information. Go ahead, Ernie.
Everybody have?
I think we all have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess there's no real need to, well, I guess since we're being recorded, I might as well read this out. This is Belgrade's tax information. See the attached report, and the report is done off in a couple of tax bills. Milled rate tax bills. This report is to point out what I believe is a very serious issue for our citizens of moderate means, those on fixed income, the unemployed, the poor, the disabled, and those who have medical issues. The Social Security numbers show that over the past 4 years, many of our elderly and SSI disability recipients, actually back to 2009, have seen no real increases. Social Security increase data, part of the report, are based on federal cost of living data, which leaves out many items. The reason I checked into this data was my personal experience with my tax bill. And again, everybody on this board has a kind of a rough idea of some of the problems I've had with my tax bill over the last several years. It's not a big deal, but 2013, there was an error on that tax bill. And that's what kind of really motivated me to look at this. And when I looked at it, on my current bill, it was a shocker. But the numbers are wrong on that bill. As you know, I have required abatements to correct my tax bill over the past several years. This leaves me wondering, how many other errors are there? In addition, on the bottom of prior tax bills, there has been a percentage breakdown in actual dollar amounts. This wasn't on 2017 tax bill. Percentages don't show real dollars and cents. I believe this needs to be part of our billing as it was in the past. And I spoke with the assessor today, and he said it's no problem beyond that. That's something we can decide. But anyways, you have a copy of two tax bills and the valuation. The only difference in the valuation is the fact that the 2013 tax bill valuation had a $10,000 homestead exemption, and the 2017 tax bill had a $15,000 home exemption. So the difference in the two properties, the real estate valuation is basically the $5,000. So the tax bill in 2013, this particular piece of property was $4,021.18. And that was in 2013. The same property in 2017 was $4,773.60. Just seeing those numbers, and looking at that, it doesn't really seem to be a big deal. But in looking at those numbers, and then you look back and you see the school was 63.3% in 2013, today it's 75%. Our municipality was 28%, almost 29% back in 2013, and today it's 17%. And when I read that in particular, I just recall that I think this board was thrown under the bus, I don't know how many times at public meetings, as to how we have not taken care of the tax bills, and we just, it was over budget on the town office, yeah, I've heard, and people tried to make us look like we're a bunch of idiots. We're not looking out for the best interest of the taxpayers. Well, I'm going to show you something. On this report, this is really and this is public information, but I broke this down. And the actual breakdown of this, the county tax in 2013 was 300, and on this bill, this is on this bill, at the mill rate, so everybody's percentages are the same. It's just the number will be different on your bill. The percentages, which is important. The county tax bill was $317.69, 2013. 2017, it was $381.89. That's $64.20 increase. Not a big deal, but that's a 20% increase. Still not a big deal. Municipal taxes. This is what I found shocking. $1,158.10 in 2013. 2017, same bill, $811.51. How's the select board been doing? I would say it's been doing exceptionally well. That's a negative 29.93% to run this town government. That's the whole town government here. School tax, 2013, $2,545.41. 2017, it's $4,771.60.
No, 35.80, 20.
35.
Well, I'm diving down on the actual tax bill. It was 35.80.20. That's a $1,420.16 increase, equals 40.65% increase on the school budget over a 4-year window. And if you look down below that, you will see Social Security benefits, Medicare premium increases. These are actual numbers. These are not pulled out of India. These are actual numbers. This is actual assessed values based on mill rates. So if everybody does their go home and do their tax bill, this is the town data, and it came from town data. This is not a fictitious report. But Social Security in 2014 was, the increase was 1.5%. 2015 was 1.7%. 2016 there was no increase. 2017 it was 0.3% increase. And the Social Security benefits, as far as Medicare premiums go, in 2017, I didn't have the data on those other years, but in 2017 there was a 3.2% increase. So anybody up to a point lost money on their Social Security that given year. 2018, next year, the notices are already out. They're going to be real generous. Social Security benefits are going to be 2% increase. But the Medicare premium increase is 12.4%. All I'm telling you is, I just hope when we go through it, first of all, we need, I don't know if there's anything, I was in to see the assessor today, and I gotta say that the software and stuff that he works with, it's just, if there's errors, whatever. But I had issues, so that's what got me involved in doing this research. But in doing this research, it's been an eye-opener, and I would suggest everybody take a good hard look at their old tax bills and see what has happened. And again, the other thing that I want to make perfectly clear here that irritates me is this select board has been thrown under the bus and the budget committee because we seem to spend money and we don't know what we're doing. And I just think that the public, and I hope there's a lot of people listening, that they understand that we have saved this town a ton of money. And we have a great select board. We've had great select boards over the years. And I just think it's too bad we didn't have an RSU that managed their budget appropriately. Because a 40% increase in 4 years is killing the people that I read about at the first of this, and there's no consideration taken for those people. And I don't care what anybody says. If you're an RSU 18 and you take money from the people in this town because everybody thinks we're rich, they better ride around this town and go knock on everybody's door. Because I've done it. You can't believe the amount of poor people in this town. In the reports from the U.S. government and other institutions in this country say 80% of the people live from paycheck to paycheck. Yet we can handle these huge increases. I think it's crying shame. You know, there's nothing this select board can do about that school budget. Nothing. That's just data that I come on to, and when I got involved in that because of my bill, I found that this data was very frustrating to me, and I wanted to share it and bring it to the attention of the board.
Thank you, Marty. Appreciate your work. I do. I think we all do.
Absolutely.
Well, in your second paragraph here, you say that in past years, there was a breakdown percentage and the actual dollar amount. It wasn't on our current bill.
Well,
Can we go back to that, or?
Yeah, we can. I spoke to the assessor, but if you look at this here,
Yeah.
this year's tax bill, it didn't even have the total down here in the bottom box where it used to.
Oh, okay.
See, my 2000
Yeah.
tax bill, my bill was $4,000, but this one says 2,400 some odd dollars, which was wrong.
Yeah,
So, but it's just, that's what generated my interest because of the problems that I've had. And then when I got into researching it, I said, hey, you know, I'm gonna put a report together and share it with the select board, because I think this is an eye, or it should be an eye, and to a lot of people in this town.
mhm.
And you know, it's unfortunate, no matter what we do, no matter how we present it, you know, people want to stay home and bury their head under their mattress, do it, because you are getting the shaft.
Okay,
Okay.
want to read the warrant, please? You're a good man. And those of you with questions can get ready.
Warrant number 144. $533,807.05.
I'll make the motion, we accept that.
I second it. Any discussion?
I thought you had a question.
I do. On page, number 4, what, 16, 452. It's on main scale. Scale calibration, $888.25.
Transfer station.
I know where it's from, I just think that's a lot of money.
What would the scale cost?
Well, that's calibration.
What's that?
42 or 52?
52, I'm sorry. It's a scales, I know it's scales for the transfer station, but
It's,
I think his question is, why is it so much?
well, they play, here's the thing, the service charge, the service vehicle charge, a flat rate of $300. The technician replaced the bad load cell, number one. And we ran a cable for the calibration itself. And then checked operation. And that was, the labor on that was $127.50, and the parts was $425.
Are these the only calibrators in the area?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
the one that apparently they've been using.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just the scale calibration,
No,
it
no,
was a
no, no.
repair,
It was a zone
service.
flat 3,
Yeah.
flat fee, and it must be because of the type of scale.
Yeah. Okay.
does the scales, do we charge people for weight on those scales, or are we still using that just to verify the weight of the bale before it goes out?
I think this is the bale.
Yeah.
We don't have a vehicle scale.
No.
I knew that, but I wondered.
We could have a vehicle scale.
I know, no, we're not. We went through that, no.
Are there any more questions, Joe? Going once. Going twice.
No, one question.
Yes.
What's the, on the, page 6,
Check number?
check number, 16462, the Dunn Road right-of-way line, what,
Okay, I can
what's
answer
that all
that.
about?
That's needed.
That-
Well, I'm sure it is,
If it's
but,
Dunn Road. This was Thayer Engineering. If you remember, there was prep work done to put a culvert in up there, and they had to blast. And there was a surveying issue that, in order to get the culvert on the right of way.
They had to
it was Thayer.
find where the right-of-way was?
I forget how much.
It's right by the hazard farm.
It's right by the hazards. It was,
Oh.
well, it doesn't give you the mileage, but it was 15.5 hours of surveyor time,
Oh,
3 hours.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it was,
That was a heck of a
Put a
job.
culvert in.
yeah.
No,
No, this was surveying the right of way for the road itself.
That's what these guys did. The whole process was to blast part of the rocks out on
So we
one
could get
side to
better
get it
drainage.
widened out there.
Oh, all right, all right. Well, I'm just
For better
seeing,
drainage on the road.
seems sort of arbitrary, so I'm all set.
Okay,
I'm good.
seeing there's no more questions, all those in favor? Thank you. Town managers reports?
Okay, real quick on a couple things. The first thing I want to say is, as you know, we had the facilities maintenance assistant and assistant transfer station supervisor position open. And we worked really hard trying to get anyone at all to apply. Not that we would take a warm body, but we did get a young man today that applied. We interviewed him. He looks like he's a really good person. We're going to try him out for 6 months, we told him. And I just wanted to know, his name is Philip McRoy. We hired him on Monday. We'll be bringing him in to do the initial paperwork and he'll start working on that. You know Philip? Lou Ashland, the grandfather?
Grandson.
Or grandson?
One would hope.
Lou Ashland was his grandfather. Anyhow, he seems like a nice young man. The other thing is, we held a meeting of the soon-to-be Communications Committee. And the Communications Committee had some very good comments on the policy that I drafted, as well as on the charter, and we're going to be bringing that to the board, at some time in the near future, so that you can look at it, and then maybe we can reestablish the Communications Committee, so that we can foster better relationships between the town fathers and the town office in the community. And recognizing that this is for official business. So I thought that was a good move. We've had 8 properties foreclosed, that's 9 accounts. There's 2 people, one person with 2 properties or 2 accounts that they've were foreclosed on. I'll be bringing some information forward to you pursuant to our policy. We'll be recommending foreclosure sale or not. It's up to you to approve those. So we'll be bringing that forward. I'm looking into, a young lady came in today and we were talking about, she wanted to bring to my attention electricity supplies and the potential for alternative electricity supplies at lower price. As you know, the standard offer rate will be going up next year. So I'm going to be looking into that. She works for Ambit supplier, but there's like, let me see, I don't know how many suppliers out there, but there's a whole bunch. So I told her I was going to look at PUC. I used to be the executive director there, so I'm going to talk to some folks there to give me some good advice about alternative suppliers and what the rules are relative to what you can and can't do and all of that. So that was a good meeting today, and I just wanted to let you know. When we go into that depends on the outcome of the research. I told her I'd be back in contact with her, and it may be later on and beyond the first of the year, but my sense is we can, my understanding is we can move as soon as we get the information developed.
Just to add a little bit to that, there is an urgency to that, because January 1, and there is no, you don't realize as good of a break that you're going to get.
Yeah, well, right.
It's a 1-year contract. So,
I'm going to try to get this all done.
I'm just saying there is kind of urgency to maybe take advantage.
Have a good night. Thanks, Howard.
If there is.
Do we know right offhand how much of the town's power bill is for energy and how much is for the delivery?
Well, it's
Because at home, I pay twice as much for delivery as I do for energy.
that's right, and it's generally that way across the board.
So when you talk about charge for energy,
You're only talking about
you're
electricity.
working on the low end of it.
You're only talking about the electricity.
Kilowatt hours.
Kilowatt hours. It's the beans that come through the lines. But you can buy beans now, so to speak.
What was it? Just 2.
Okay. We had one petition, excuse me, I'm gonna get this organized here. We had a number of petitions, as you know, that came through. Almost all of them, with the exception of one, passed with the right number of petitions, the right signatures, and all of that. There was one that failed by one signature. And there were two signatures on here that, one of which I recognize as being a Belgrade resident. It wasn't a signature, she failed to sign in the signature block, and that was the failure for the petition. It was for a petition for the sum of $1,116.50 for the Sexual Assault Crisis and Support Center. So you could fail this for the lack of one signature. I did recognize one of the signatories. When I say that person that printed their name, I recognize that print, and I know that person, and you do too, but I won't name the person. But she just put Belgrade in the line where she was supposed to sign. The same with another person. So the question that I'm bringing to you is, do you want to fail it for that signature or not? I mean, it's really your issue.
I don't think I want to go that route.
I would move that we accept that petition.
I'll second.
I just,
Any discussion, gentlemen? All those in favor?
I didn't think that you would do anything but that, but I wanted to raise it to your attention. Another interesting article that I just wanted to quickly remind you of is, if you remember, we had some brown-tailed moth invasion up around the golf course and some other areas in town. I've been tracking that just because I told people that we continue to put out information. Harpswell is looking at using a fungus to control that. I'm going to continue following this because if we get a broader spread of the brown-tailed moth, then maybe we could consider doing something like that. That sounds like an interesting.
Well, thank you, because that is a health hazard to some people.
Yeah, it is.
I have one add to that is that I just saw something on the news where somewhere they're burying insects in the ground or something that will
Rise up?
eat these moths or something in the spring, in May or whatever.
I haven't read that.
It was in Portland.
There's a.
Yeah, you saw
They
it.
bury the eggs that are overwintering and then they.
Is it the fungus? It's not the. It's not
I
the
don't know
fungus.
if it's for the brown town moth or not, but I did hear
I
that.
think it is, yeah.
Let's hope it's as effective as removing the wolves from Yellowstone Park.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something to look into.
I got that.
Good.
The whole, never mind. Belgrade Lakes Village Dam. You know that we initiated a repair up there. My understanding is the repair was okay to do without a permit. Subsequent to that, we have to put in some riprap and some washed stone. They notified DEP because they thought there might be a permit required. Well, there is.
There is.
Apparently, there is.
yeah,
Apparently.
there's no question.
And the permit requirement, the expense of getting that, doing the habitat review and all that that's associated with the Tier 3 permit requirement is about $10,000. I've read some information that indicated to me that at least if you're doing dam repair, and I've got the law, if you're doing dam repair and it's not exceeding 50% of the structure of the dam, it just doesn't, then you'd be exempt from permitting requirements. Not necessarily the one that they're talking about. So anyhow, I'm meeting with MEMA, DEP, Thursday at 10 o'clock up at the dam. And we're going to look at that and I'm going to raise the issue to those folks about, we've had a dam committee meeting, the dam committee will be there as well. So we're going to raise the issue. I think one of the possibilities is, and DEP raised this, that what they might, and by the way, that permit, they have 90 days to review it after you turn it in. So that's well past what we're trying to get done so we can preserve what has been put in. So, what the DEP has said is if you provide an emergency, kind of a narrative describing the emergency in the nature, you provide an engineering plan of what you're going to do, and you provide an initial habitat review, that we could potentially get approval to proceed before we get the permit and do an after-action permit, but we still have to do the permit. So what I'm hoping to do is be able to work through all of this so that if we do the permit, but we're all concerned about the lakes, I mean, we get that. But this is an area that's been impacted by the same process in the past, as I understand. This sheeting, this little plastic sheeting has been put up there to preserve the leakage. MEMA is saying that they'd rather have the $10,000 we'd spent on a permit spent up at Sandton, because there's a real problem up there. They're concerned about that. Yeah. So we're gonna try to work through all of this. I just want to keep you informed of what the situation is with the dam. Any questions?
I have a question. I thought I heard in some of the conversation, dam committee, that there was some work gonna be done on Wings Mill Dam.
That's through the budget for next year. They're requesting additional 10,000 for the Wings Mills Dam for next year's repairs. There's some other issues that, with the whole issue with the dam committee that we'll be looking at this summer as well. And I appreciate, Jack, your comments at the budget committee meeting about that one warrant article that I pulled out, if you remember. I appreciate that. Okay. And there's the documents that I've been looking at as far as the dam. Now, the DA on committee. Next. Salt sand shed. I've communicated with, this is the salt sand shed ventilation issue. I communicated with David Trask, who actually built his father built it. I assume it was his father. But anyhow, he said that he did indeed put a second fan in, and it was a 48-inch fan. And that's what they went up and looked at, the 48-inch fan. It's an agricultural fan. It has a 20,000 cubic foot per minute capacity. And we've been looking through, I've got the set of plans now for the salt and sand shed because we couldn't find it in the office. And they actually designed another 48-inch fan with a higher CFM. DOT uses in their buildings, depending on the size, but the two sizes, 13.8 cubic foot per minute fan and a 18.8, roughly 18,000 cubic foot fan. So they're both up around, one's at 3/4 of the way to 20,000, the other one's at almost 20,000 cubic foot per minute. So David's saying, I don't understand why this is not working. So he's agreed to come down, meet with me, David, and whoever else, Gary Foss, to check it out, and just to see why. But we do have specs for another fan, a fan that is going to be a pusher fan, but he and other people I've talked to said that probably wouldn't work, but again, that's just talk right now. So I wanted to update you on that.
I guess a question on, might the fan need to be in the other end of the building possibly?
Well, we have a design for a pusher fan that would go into that, would push into the building, whether it should pull out or not. I don't think so, but I'm not as
Well, your outlet has to be a larger fan than your intake.
He's a guy with a ship background, so he knows.
So if it is, it'll move air through more quickly. But if you can get an exhaust fan that will exhaust through,
Yeah.
since it only runs with the doors open, right? I mean, it's 20
Yeah,
feet,
yeah.
then you're fine, but
Yeah.
the
So
only
that's,
reason I could see that an intake and an exhaust system wouldn't work is your intake fan is too big.
yeah, but there's only one fan up there right now. Cindy put in, actually Cindy came over and I talked to the guy. And they have two 48-inch fans, but their building is bigger than ours. Their building is 10 foot wider. So it's 80 versus 70 and 131 feet long, which gives you quite a bit of extra volume. So, anyhow, we're still working on it. Dave says it's not a real problem right now. The only problem is we'd like to get it out of this year's money. But I'm still working on it, so I just want to let you know that. Next week, next board meeting, we have a meeting with the Time Warner Cable Spectrum or Charter. They're coming out to review the 5-year review for us. In that review, I've already got a question into them, which I haven't heard a response, is whether they will grant us equipment to do the video broadcasting. So we've got that request. Violations. As you know, we got concerns with Brightside Marina with the need for a permit up there, and we're working on that. My understanding is that there's a gentleman working on that permit.
What's this?
Brightside Marina up in the village.
In the Skunk Alley.
Stream,
We have the Sandy Cove violation. I'm going to have one more review with Gary before I've had the lawyer look at the letter that we're going to put out. It's an NOV and the consent agreement. So we're going to put that out shortly as soon as I get a chance to talk with Gary. We have an upcoming, well, it's been a long-standing issue with Beach Lot 3. As you know, there's a legal case there. I've been deposed. Other people have been deposed on that in The concern is the issuance of the building permit up there, out for Beach Lot 3, when other people think that they have rights that were taken from them. But the other concern that came up, and I was just talking to the gentleman today, he has a complaint about potential shoreline zoning violations up there. He's got pictures of logs that were removed when that house was built, and within the shoreline zone, all of that. So that's an issue that we're going to have to contend with potentially, and I'm going to be reviewing that. We'll look at his complaint letter when it comes in, and then we may in fact have to take an action up there.
I have just a quick question on your own, and is there anything involved in all of this where we may have to raise a little extra money for legal fees?
Well, actually, one of the proposals I have is to do away with the code enforcement reserve and put $20,000 to cover all of our legal expenses for the town, including the appeals board, whatever. So I think that that's sufficient, and we'll work through that. Okay. 341 Manchester Road issue. The old Rosine Road.
Looking pretty good.
Well, I communicated with those folks, and I've actually told the person that's supposed to be getting the contract done. The problem is, the one contractor she was getting failed to put in some information, and they finally just pulled the contract from them, and they were issuing a new contract. What should be finalized for going to the bank for approval, December 8th. I told her, I said, if you don't do this, if you don't get this done, we may go out and hire someone to actually build the bank. So I've got the address of the bank and all of that. But that's where we might go. I'm hoping we don't have to do that, because then there's a whole process involved in it.
Now's a good time to get it, because everything's dead around there.
Yeah.
You can really see it.
Exactly. Similarly with the problem up on Route 8 and 11, my understanding that Gary went up there, checked it out, told them what more they have to remove, and my understanding is that they've been doing that. Ricky could probably provide me with that.
Oh, yeah. The stuff outside by the mailbox every week.
Free, right?
Oh, yeah, and it's,
There, people pick it.
oh, yeah, people
Well, that's
stop and
good.
get it, it's gone. It's gone to another house.
There's one other issue that I'm going to update you on before we get into the final issue, and that is map 18, lot 2A, which is down in Sandy Cove, formerly known as the Parker Shore subdivision. That lot owner is unknown and it hasn't been taxed for God knows how many years. So we're working through deeds and research and all that I've had Anthony do and Nick do, and we've had the assessor working on this, trying to find who owns that property. And the ownership was lost sometime in the late 60s or early 70s. I don't know how far you would like that to go. I would like to get it raised. Now, the assessors told me that every town has one or two of these. But I've got people asking to buy it from the town. Well, the town has interest in it, but we don't know who to tax. So we're trying to solve that. I'll get back to you if we ever do find the owner. I think we will. It's horrendous to try to work through the.
Is there a mechanism for taking that property if no owner is?
You gotta establish the owner so you can,
Is anybody using it?
no,
This is just a vacant lot.
it's a vacant lot that two people down on the shore have asked me if they could buy it. When is the town going to foreclose?
And it hasn't been on tax
There's
rolls since
no tax bills on
1969.
that
Never had a job,
since
no-
the late
nobody using it.
70s or early 60s. I mean, late 60s or early 70s.
We know who owned it, 69.
We're trying to find that out so we can track it. Because the people that we thought owned it were the heirs of Ken Bartlett, right? And they said, no way, we don't have that property.
I don't want to get my house dropped off the tax.
Mrs. Palone.
Yeah.
Mrs.
Mine is
Palone
now.
owned all of that shore down there.
It's easy
He
to-
said, it's not hers. I talked to the surveyor, Dan Herman. He says, he thought that the heirs to Ken Bartlett owned it, but we checked that out. And Diane said, she checked, Diane Palone. I called her, talked to her, and sent her letters. Now we got one other person we're talking to, and then we're gonna have to do more deed research. And, that's an interesting problem. I was surprised to find out.
Well, there's gotta be a mechanism somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go see if I can find all that.
I thought one of those folks would say, yeah, that's fine. Okay. On the final issue is, you've received your tax books, and tomorrow night we have a meeting with, not your tax books, your budget books. Tomorrow night we have a meeting with the budget committee. It's our last meeting before the joint meeting on Saturday. What you'll see in your book is,
We didn't do it on an Excel spreadsheet, we printed it out from Trio this year. So what you're going to have is last year's budget amount, this year's proposed budget amount, and you're going to get an expense detail report that's going to show you what was budgeted, what was expended, and what's left in the account. For every line
and
item.
there's gonna be notes in there that will tell you what reasons for increases or not, at various points, you'll see them. And we'll have the warrant, did you get the warrant printed? The warrants in there is printed, the draft warrant is printed, and we believe it's pretty good, but there may be changes to it. All right? And we've got one number that I know will probably change. Did you put a number in, or there may not be a number in there for, and that number is for the staging of the building up at Center for All Seasons. The guy who's getting us the information, it's supposed to be in today, but it'll be in tomorrow. So that's that.
I have one question.
Okay.
Maybe it's, is there a percent change anywhere recorded?
There's not.
No, you will, no, but we can talk about that. The other thing you're gonna see is, you're gonna see the schedule. We passed out the schedule for Monday. We're gonna have the people in, we're gonna come in on the hour, right? What you're gonna see on the schedule you get on Saturday is, after the transfer station, it'll show you the warrant articles that are gonna be involved in that discussion. The facilities will show you the warrant articles. The same way with the fire department and et cetera, down the roads. If there's one or two warrant articles, you'll see, so you'll know what warrant articles to go to and all of that. I think that'll make it easier for us to walk through.
Is the schedule in here?
Now, being a creature of habit, I take it we're gonna do that here.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I'll end up,
No, we're done with this.
Go to the old town office.
yeah, Center for All Seasons.
And by the way, we did, it's up on the sign that there is a meeting Saturday, because we're supposed to announce it. It's up on the website. The meeting is up on the website. And it should say budget development or something like that after the purpose. So with that kind of long and extended town manager report, which I know I'm normally briefer,
Yeah, you're running in overtime.
Is there anything else? No. Seeing none, let's take 5 minutes. We'll then adjourn from this session, go into the executive. Okay. 5 minutes.
Hi, how you doing?